I am digital illustrator Mike Meth.
I'm model and body painter Caitlin St. Angelo.
And I'm CG character artist Evan Boucher, and this is Artistic Awareness.
Hey!
Hey!
Welcome to episode 10 of the Artistic Awareness Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of the unspoken issues facing artists today. Our guest for this episode is Mr. Evan Boucher, a CG artist and character technical director for DreamWorks. Evan is a multifaceted artist with interests in animation, zoology, paleo art, and a passion for learning for the sake of learning. Evan is a jack of all trades and master of all trades. Our topic for this episode.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes in this instance.
All right. You're the
Jack of all trades and master of all trades. That's uniquely yours. So our topic for this episode is learning versus doing. And Miss Caitlin St. Angelo is going to do me the honor of starting us off here.
We're really trend-setting some new phrases here today, huh? So, welcome to episode 10. This is episode 10. We're officially in double digits. 10 whole episodes.
Yay!
So, thank you for joining us, Evan, on this momentous occasion.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So Evan's involved in a whole lot of stuff, and we, in listening to all the things that he gets his hands into, are really interested in how he balances his lifelong pursuit of knowledge and, you know, having new experiences with actually producing results and like getting things done. And for anyone who listened to the episode with Mark Plotkin, we had referenced input versus output. You know, what do you consume versus what you create? So, Evan, I wanted to ask you for a little bit about yourself, about your learning philosophy and the many things that you're up to.
Okay. Well, so my learning philosophy, I guess, is basically I just like to surround myself with information and things that I'm generally interested in, so that I'm constantly absorbing as much as I can about said topics, in the hope that not only just because I enjoy doing it, but also you never know when those things will actually help you in kind of your own artistic endeavors.
Right.
So especially like when you're as an artist, the great thing about being an artist is you get to dabble in all kinds of different kind of cross-disciplinary work here and there.
And the money is just, we're just rolling in.
Oh, right, yeah, coach. Yeah, so because like a lot of what artists do is working, you know, to try to convey different things, whether it's like, you know, bringing historical time periods to life, or just kind of creating a sense of new design in a, you know, original world or something. There's plenty to know about that, about those things that you're dabbling in, that will that can create a richer experience for you know, your audience, basically.
So how did you get into, I mean, now you're a, what is your official title at DreamWorks?
Yeah, what are all these things that you do?
Yeah, what, can you tell us what your job actually is, character technical director, and then specifically, you've talked to me about a bunch about paleo art, and
yes.
What the heck is paleo art?
Okay, so I'm a character technical director, which might be one of the more difficult jobs to describe, and such.
I think Dave Lally had a similarly complicated title to describe.
He did, yes, he did.
Yeah, people will be like, "Oh, you work on the characters," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, I work on the characters." And like, "Oh, so you like model them?" It's like, "No, I don't model them." They're like, "Oh, so then you animate them?" Like, "No, I don't do that either." It's like, then what exactly do you do?
So what would you say you do here?
Yeah, so we are the step between modeling and animation. So if you could think of like stop motion, in like the stop motion world, what we do would be building the armature under that allows the animator to move the character. Mm-hmm. So we get basically this static model from modeling, and then animation can't do anything with that. So we have to be able to put in all the systems underneath to be able to like move things and push things around and like tweak deformations so that like when the elbow bends, it doesn't look like a collapsing tube, but actually
Right.
looks like it retains volume and all that kind of stuff.
So it's like taking a clay figurine and inserting, like you're saying, the wire understructure, which gives you the ability to
Yeah,
do all kinds of
basically
fancy things.
making it look like there's bone and muscle underneath, and that things slide around as they should and all that fun
Cool.
stuff.
I will
Yeah.
probably never meet another character technical director.
You don't know that.
I know,
don't know that.
I don't.
If you wish really hard, next shooting star you see.
All right, so tell us a little bit about paleo art as well, because I know you have some. I wanted to say biology interests, zoology interests. Let's go with
Oh,
zoology.
it's all.
He has all of the interests.
I'm interested in all of it.
So tell me about paleo art. Specify what paleo art is for us.
Okay, so paleo art is the representation of extinct organisms in art, basically, and it has a very, very long history, going back to late 1700s. But it's something that's kind of evolved alongside science for the history of science, basically, or paleo art alongside history of paleontology specifically. So it's paleontological subjects depicted in art, and with the goal of trying to actually create things in an accurate way to kind of not only present to the public, the science in a more digestible way, but also trying to. It's also a way of kind of speculating what these things actually look like in life, so that it can help drive the science as well, which is pretty cool.
So I have children ask me to face paint dinosaurs on them. Does that count as paleo art?
Yes.
In the broadest sense, yes, but I'm sure there's probably people that would be like, just not every, drawing of a dinosaur counts as paleo art because it needs to have
don't go breaking rank on
scientific.
her, Evan.
Yeah, it's like some people will argue that
paleo artists.
All those people will not be guests on this show.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, because there is a difference. There's because dinosaurs show up a lot in fantasy artwork, and it's very clearly not trying to be real.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the dinosaurs in Peter Jackson's King Kong, they were not accurate at all, really, but they're not really all supposed to be at the same time. They're kind of designed for that world and kind of more of an homage to the old original King Kong, where things were inaccurate because they didn't know better. So that's more fantasy art than
How about dragons?
Dragons.
Definitely paleo art. Definitely
It depends what kind of dragon. If you're talking
dragons on Game of Thrones, Evan.
No, but if you're talking about giant Varanoid monitor lizards or something, then Varanids, sorry, not, I don't know how you said that. But yeah, so paleo art is cool, and
that's the takeaway here.
Yeah, I got involved with it in grad school for my master's thesis. I ended up doing a paleo art project where we laser scanned the bones of a 65 million year old crocodile from New Jersey that was dug up by paleontologists at Drexel and I think University of Delaware. Yeah, Jersey. I'm not really a big fan of Jersey, sorry. Because I'm from Pennsylvania, I have to,
It's okay, just trash, both.
Yeah, way to just isolate.
They got some cool fossils there, though, so I give them that at least.
Well, you're welcome for that crocodile.
Yeah,
Born and bred, just for you.
He was a good bro. He helped me out a lot.
So what are what are some of the current things you're working on? What have you been up to?
Oh, I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss too much.
That's fair. That's fair.
Top secret DreamWorks projects?
Yeah, I don't know if they're super secret. I know that they've announced that they're on the plate, but I don't think they've necessarily announced that it's in active development or anything, so I'm just going to play it safe and not say. But I will say that I am doing face rigs for characters these days, which is very fun. I enjoy faces quite a bit.
Well, why don't we... Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's me. I do that.
Yeah,
I am
dude.
also an avid fan of faces, but that's an awkward segue. But let's let's get into
Well, now it is.
Yeah, let's just stare awkwardly now.
All right,
So
Mike.
let's
All right. Round
let's
table
jump
one.
into yes. So let's jump into the conversation here. So one of the things that you bring to the table is an insatiable hunger for knowledge and learning, and but that's accurate. You know, that's Evan and I went to college together at Drexel, and that's one of the things that I recognized very early on, and you know, I found admirable is that you really are. You have this genuine passion for learning and accruing new knowledge, and I think that that's an incredibly important thing. And so, for the sake of this chunk of the conversation, you know, I'm going to talk about what are some of the benefits. You know, what do you get out of having this commitment to learning? And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is it prevents stagnation. You know, I think that if you stop, if you become complacent with the things you already know, be it information or be it your skill set, I think it's very easy to, you know, you start to stagnate and the growth stops. I think another thing to get out of, you know, constantly bringing in new information is new information, new material begets inspiration. Which I know is that's an important thing for me. You know, if I'm looking at new artists, you know, learning about new techniques, there's always going to be that the inspiration that comes with that just by being exposed to new things. And another thing that you said, Evan, which I think is really really relevant, is the idea that you never know when things are are going to connect. Maybe you're working on this one project, and because you have this commitment to learning and you have all this stuff in the archives, all these pieces of information, techniques in the archives, you never know when those things are going to come in handy. So I mean, I think that those are all some really big benefits. But you know, so for the sake of this conversation, I wanted to get a sense of, for us specifically, what are some of the ways that we learn and expand and, you know, just keep evolving? So what would you say, Evan?
So I kind of think of it like, just like, you know, the best way to improve your craft of drawing is to, you know, do technical drawings from life. You know, and you know, I love to draw off the top of my head. I'm much better drawing cartoons off the top of my head than I am with actually like drawing from life most of the time. But like, I recognize that you kind of have to stop down and do those life studies and be able to have that kind of technique in order to improve the imaginary stuff as well.
Yes.
And since what I do isn't just kind of static imagery, but kind of through motion and stuff, there's also that added observation skills that animators need to have, which is being able to observe and take in the subtleties of behavior. And what I do specifically, it's more, I think of it more like I try to take in information from like a biomechanics perspective, because that'll help inform how, you know, anatomy and all that kind of stuff works when rigging characters. So I like to try to just constantly be observing things. It's really important that when you're doing this, that you actually take the time to like really observe and really analyze like the small, minute things. I feel like a lot of people will like animators, for instance, will sometimes like shoot reference footage, which, you know, is kind of a basic thing that animators should do. But sometimes I wonder if like people are actually like using that properly. Like it takes some focus and some real like hard work to actually sit down there and be like, okay, I see that this is doing this thing, but what's actually causing this?
Right, to deconstruct it.
Yeah.
You know, Kate and I recently we were looking at your demo reel, and we were looking at the piece about the crocodile. Crocodile. And
well, it's a gavialid crocodilian, but yes.
That's what I. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I hope the crocodile's not offended. It's not offended.
No, it's definitely
Okay.
not. It's
It's
definitely
from New
in,
Jersey, so we have.
it's within Crocodilia, so you
Yeah.
are quite okay.
But one of the things that I noticed specifically, and I'm pretty sure Kate noticed as well, is looking at the demo reel and looking at some of the animation, you could see all of the musculature at work, and
Mhm.
I think that that's fascinating. I think that probably, and it's hard for me to say, I don't know, but I think that a lot of these types of things, you only get a sense of what's on the surface.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that that's something that's common. I don't think so. I think a lot of animation or a lot of drawings or whatever else, you only see the superficial stuff. You only see what's going on the surface. And
Right.
you specifically, you're talking about not just taking the reference, but really deconstructing it and getting a sense of how it works. So to be
Mhm.
able to see that's one of the best ways to see it at play is looking at the musculature and looking how these things interact. It really gives you a sense that you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, and it lends itself to, it gives everything, it gives the final animation much more authenticity. I think that with art, with figure drawing, for example, one of
Shout
the
out to
most
figure
important
drawing.
things.
Keep me in
Yeah.
business.
One of the things about figure drawing that a lot of teachers always preach is not just doing a linear line drawing of the model,
No.
but really getting a sense of the volume and the structure and the construction. Like, why do these things look the way they look? What goes into it? And I think that that's a really important thing.
Yeah, and that's also why, like, in your figure drawing studies, they won't just start you off with, here's a model, go to town, but, like, they'll start with the anatomy lesson so you can recognize the little processes on, like, the long bones and that kind of
Right.
stuff, so you can understand what is causing those shapes, because if you have a better idea of the volumes and, the construction of it, it'll help you when trying to translate this 3D volume into a 2D space.
Right. So, Kate, what are some of the ways that you learn and expand?
Oh, it's my turn. Yay.
It's your turn.
All right. What are some of the ways that I personally learn and expand? Well, I just wrapped up another semester at school, so that's definitely a big one. So being in college, I have an internship with Danny Fonseca doing a lot of body art related stuff, and it's great to surround myself with other people who are doing what I'm interested in, so I can kind of tag along with them and like learn from the pros, make connections and learn from your friends. And I've had other girls in that internship with skills outside of my knowledge, and we can team up and learn from each other. I'm involved in B School, which is run by Marie Forleo. It's a business school. Kind of like online business school. There you go. I listen to a heck of a lot
Evan
of
is smiling
podcasts.
about something. What are you smiling about, Evan?
Sorry, the first thing that came to mind was when he said bee school is I like beekeeping, because I went to a talk on beekeeping yesterday, so I don't know, that was in my mind. Carry on.
There are 0 B's in B School other than the first one. That's it.
Okay.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, which I usually do in the car. I kind of multitask them with things, so I'm constantly putting on podcasts so I can just absorb more information.
Like artistic awareness?
Yeah, like artistic awareness. I also subscribe to a lot of people on YouTube, whether it's another artist that I want their tutorials from or a speaker or something. If you subscribe to them on YouTube and you get the subscriptions delivered right to your inbox, which I hear through the grapevine you can also do with artistic awareness.
Yep,
Just
I heard
saying.
that too.
I don't know. So that's it. I kind of, to set up processes that allow me to absorb information, like where the content keeps getting put in front of me. I don't really have to continually seek it out when I have subscriptions to podcasts and YouTube, and those things are showing up on my phone to listen to and kind of watch or whatever. That's probably my number one way of making sure that I'm constantly forward moving in my own expansion and learning.
That's essentially exactly what I do. But so, like, subscribing to things on YouTube, liking things on Facebook, so it forces them into your feed. So when I was first doing the Crocodile project, like, I just knew, like, if I'm going to be able to pull this off, I'm going to have to live and breathe all of this stuff. So I just, like, went on to, at the time, Google Reader, which, RIP, take a moment of silence.
Oh.
Google Reader. Yeah, but so I just like found all of these kind of like science blogs on zoology and paleontology and stuff, and just kind of like forced myself to read all this stuff, and now it's like become like an obsession where I'm constantly adding new stuff to the stream, and sometimes it gets a little unwieldy. So
Yes.
since I'm no longer using Google Reader, just so people aren't confused, I'm now on Dig Reader, which is pretty similar. It's not, it's not quite the same, but, you know. But yeah, so just constantly adding blogs. So I have like a section for like artists that I really like their work, a section for just like, biological influences, a section for like tumblers because I have to filter that out because those things get updated all the time.
All the time.
Shout out to Tumblr.
But I just discovered this scientific illustration Tumblr, which is fantastic. They show all kinds of really cool like technical drawings.
How excited are you about that Tumblr?
It's pretty good. There's like everything from like the old like scientific illustrations from like the 17 and 1800s to like things that people are working on now. But yeah,
So,
try to read a lot about stuff and things.
you had mentioned that it kind of becomes unwieldy really quickly, especially with Tumblr,
can,
like it just
yeah.
updates all the time. And so I wanted to point out that there's also a downside of when like too much information, too much learning. It's really, you want to get better at things, but there's this endless supply of information, and that's amazing. It's amazing that we have access to that much. It's also really easy to just get lost in it. Because it doesn't end. One link goes to another link, goes to another page, goes to anher podcast, and you're just getting lost in the void. Yeah.
Wait, no, not Moybridge. Marshall McLuhan, the hyperlinks.
Yeah.
Right?
Wait, no, you're.
Move on quickly.
Was the medium of the message. Didn't Glenn teach you anything?
No.
Cutting you off.
But yeah, the way I manage all that kind of stuff is like I used to just try to read everything, but it's gotten to the point where there's so much that I kind of have to pick and choose now, and it's up for the way I do it is it's up for me to decide which things I really want to focus on. So like there's like specific types of information that I know if it comes up like I need to read this because I'm like super interested in this overall topic. But then there's other things that are like interesting, but it's like, do I really need to put the time to become an expert on this, or can I just recognize that this is here and I know where to go find it for if I do need to reference it at some point? And it's just up to you to kind of pick and choose because there are very few people that can actually know like everything about everything, and those people are friggin' amazing, and I would love to be one of those types of people.
You are one of those people. I hear that you're a jack of all trades, a master of all trades.
You keep saying this. All right. I'm gonna take it. Okay.
Good.
I know for me, there's always a stack of books I haven't read yet. That are on my list of things I'm supposed to read, tutorials I'm supposed to watch, seminars I'm supposed to attend, and it can also start to like clutter up my calendar where I actually start to feel busier than I actually am, and it gets kind of overwhelming. But I just created all these tasks for myself. I just decided these, and I'm feeling bogged down by the amount of information I'm taking on. So I definitely like that. Like, how do I, is this worth me becoming an expert on prioritizing that? Noted. Going to integrate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
I actually have my inbox full of just all kinds of links and resources because whenever I see something pertinent or something that I want to follow up on, I'll send myself an email, and now my inbox is just flooded with
I used to do that, but like you said, it becomes hard to find things. I even created like a label for like tools and like knowledges or something so that I could like search for things. But
this is where I keep all my knowledges.
Yeah, all my knowledges in my inbox. But yeah, it's hard to find things even when you like try to write them in tag friendly ways. But so someone pointed out to me a tool called Delicious, where it's basically just a link curating site. So like you can have this little handy browser toolbar add-on thing, and it links to your account at this site where basically it just saves links based on tags that you type in. And it's kind of cool because you can nest tags within tags and all that stuff, and it's my only problem with it is sometimes it's still a little hard to find those things that you've curated. So I think it still has some work that needs to be done. But I've been experimenting with that. Also, Pinterest is a good thing to like.
Oh, I love Pinterest, but I get lost in Pinterest so fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
There's just so many things. There's so many media platforms that it's hard to I don't want to say hard to justify, but it is. I mean, because they all have so much merit to them that it's hard to kind of pick and choose, because otherwise you just kind of get lost in the fold.
And it takes some work to actually sit down and figure out, all right, I'm going to commit to try to use this one over this one and that kind of stuff.
That's too scary for me.
For more immediate things, I'll just like keep a tab open in my browser, like I'm not closing this until I read it.
I do that too.
I do that too. I absolutely do that. So
like
I
right now,
for you guys. Has focusing on learning ever gotten in the way of you being able to take action or move forward? And who do I want to go first? Evan, go first.
Oh God. Has focusing on learning ever
Spotlight
gotten
ready
in the way? Oh God.
Sure, I'll start. Okay. I'm gonna say yes. Right. Like school. School is really overwhelming for me. You know, it's kind of all encompassing. It has to be your life during the semester. And that can be really hard because you can't get a lot done when you're focusing on studying on that kind of level. But you know, there's a season for everything. I just have to know that, you know, this semester this is like a study season, and as soon as it's over, you know, consciously move back to creating. And definitely the internet thing, like I mentioned, I get stuck in the internet vortex, and then I justify it as like, well, I'm learning, so, you know, and I kind of have to tell myself to, like, cut the shit, get back to work. So this is now no longer a family-friendly podcast. Sorry.
Yeah, way to go. Way to go.
Sorry, we'll edit it in post.
We'll put, like, animal sounds over it, like a goat or something.
I don't think I have one in here. I'm looking for sound effects. I don't have a goat one. But move on. Continue.
So Evan, now it's your turn.
And I think completely taking this off the rails.
I would say it definitely does at times. It can get in the way. It's pretty much up to you to decide how you want to manage your time. Sometimes it's like the best way to delay stuff that you need to get done. Because it's like, oh, well, you know, I got to read this book first so that I know what I'm talking about. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes you have to do that kind of stuff, or else, like, everyone's going to be pretty sure that you're just kind of, like, BSing your way through something. But other times, you know, it's easy to delay things based on, you know, there's this project that I kind of am trying to get off the ground, a personal project, but, like, and I think it's just excuses at this point with me, like, okay, I should, you know, read up more on this, or, like, watch this documentary that will give me a better sense of how to build this world and stuff. But
I think that's the artist's condition, you know?
Yeah.
Because I have that too.
Yeah, especially if you're, like, kind of in doing your own stuff in particular. So, like, if you're, like, you know, working specifically for, you know, a company or a client or something, like, there's a deadline. It has to get done at some point. So, like, at some point you're forced to balance it. But, like, especially when it comes to personal projects where it's just, like, something, like, that you're building for no particular reason other than your own enjoyment, it's very easy to not actually get stuff done because you want to make sure everything is, like, as good as it can be before you even start, when sometimes you just have to stop being delusional and just sit down and do it.
Cut the BS.
Yeah.
I mean, like, for me, it's very much the same thing, you know. I have a bunch of ideas for personal projects, and I have become an expert at finding really good reasons for why I haven't done it. Yeah, really good reasons. Like, you know, I had this one. Well, I really want to do this thing, but I can't yet because I don't really know how to do this as well as I would like. Or, you know, I want to get much better at this particular discipline before I can realistically do this project, the best of my ability.
Completely valid, completely justifiable, and total BS.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, not just that, but it's I think it stems from both the fear of failure and the fear of success, because we as much as we hate being stuck where we are, it's comfortable,
Yeah.
So
we know what happens
right.
if we stay where we are.
Exactly.
Predictable.
And I also have just archives of pieces of reference and tutorials and things like that, and I'll just get so bogged down looking and learning all these different things, thinking that I need these things to be able to take the actions. I need these things in order to be able to create the art, and I use it as a crutch, So it's hard to find that balance, which is a wonderful segue, because we're going to take a look at how do you find that balance? How do you balance the learning versus doing, which is the whole title of the episode. So I guess some of the things that you can do, and this is all stuff that I regularly struggle with, but some of the strategies that are helpful in breaking the cycle of being too heavy with one or over the other is scheduling out blocks of time. I think we had a pretty decent discussion on that whole topic with Mark Plotkin, which was, what was that episode? Structure for Success. And there really is something to be said for structuring, putting things in place. I know as artists we have a tendency to think that, we don't need to do that. That's
if you don't write it down, it's not real. As far as I'm concerned, it's not real.
And that way, Evan, you were talking about deadlines. If you're working for a company, if you are doing something for someone else, they are holding you accountable. You're not left to your own devices to flounder or obsess, because they are putting in place the structure.
Yep.
So if it's us who are, and we're the only ones responsible for holding ourselves accountable, then it's that much more crucial to set the structure for ourselves. And another thing, using that structure to really make sure, keep tabs on whether or not your input is matching your output. I know, Kate, you'll have something to say on that. And another thing that I've gotten from you, Kate, I think you were talking about seasons.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call
your input doesn't need to match your output, but just to make a conscious decision of what kind of period in your life are you in. Are you in an output season? Are you in an input season? Just to consciously know what that ratio is, not necessarily
and to accept
make it
that
match.
To accept that sometimes these things go in phases, and it's okay. You don't have to feel like, I'm a terrible person because I've been doing all this learning, I haven't done the work, which is kind of where I personally have been recently. Either doing that or working on something else, that it's okay to accept that, okay, well, this is, currently this is a web design season or phase. So it's not that I'm not doing anything, I'm furthering myself, I'm making progress with my goals, and this is, the web design phase, or this is the research phase, with the understanding that the next phase will be implementation and practical application. I guess the question that I want to put out for our next roundtable is, how do you specifically balance your learning and your doing? So,
I want to say something real quick based on just to add something that Caitlin said a second ago.
We didn't have you here to talk.
Nope.
Evan. No.
Sorry, you may not.
So you said it's not real unless you write it down, and I completely agree with that. But even just writing it down doesn't make it real. I've gotten in the habit of, when I come up with ideas for personal projects, I don't tell anybody about them until I actually started working on them. Because like psychologically, your brain thinks like, I told these people about this thing, so that's like a step in the process of doing it. When it's
I'm like
not
halfway
at all.
done now. I told people.
Yeah, I told people about it, so I can like slack off and you get to it later. But it's like, no, it's like, I've gotten in the habit of just, I'm not going to announce things that I'm working on until there's like substantial progress being made.
Well, I think that there's another side to that, because yes, that could become a type of thing where, I told these people, so now I can slack off. But I think the other side of that is if you tell other people or you put something out there, now there are people in the real world to hold you accountable. So now it's like, oh, crap, I actually got to do this.
I've heard something conflicting about that because, Mike, that's how I always felt about it. And I heard someone, oh my God, I wish I remembered who it was, some reputable podcaster I can't name at the moment, was talking about how there, and I don't have anything to back this up. Maybe he does, I don't know. But something to the effect of when you talk about what you're working on, that you, like on a biological level, are getting the same kind of feeling out of it as actually accomplishing it. And that you're kind of like tricking yourself into thinking you're, like Evan said, like a step further than you actually are. You haven't done anything, but that your mind is getting that same sort of feeling of validity and recognition as if you had actually accomplished something just by talking about what you're going to do.
I think that's a tricky issue, because I think the other side of that as well, and whoever said that they're a jerk, I disagree with. No, I mean there is validity to that, but I think also by speaking it, you are now putting yourself in that frame of reference. You're putting yourself in the context that, yes, one, I am capable of doing it, and two, I'm taking the actions to making that happen. I can see both sides. I can see how that can be a very fine line between.
I think you should just decide what works best for you, which one, and you should be real with yourself. And I know for me, the thing to do is to tell someone so I'm accountable. That's how I work. So
I think it also depends who you're telling. So, like, if you're telling someone who's like a close friend that you're in constant communication with, they're more likely to hold you accountable for it, because they'll be like, "Hey, so like, how's that thing going?" And then you'll either be like,
you're working on.
It's like, so, it's either, it's going really well, or like you are ashamed with guilt, and you're like, so good.
Yeah, that's the downside of that.
On the other hand, if you're just like throwing out into like the Twitterverse or something, people are gonna like,
all right, pal,
respond and be like, oh yeah, that's cool, like, and then give you those kind of nice feelies inside. But then like those people
the nice feelies
aren't really like necessarily emotionally invested in you, so they're just gonna forget about it in like 10 minutes, or I don't know, after an eye blink. Who knows?
Kate, what is your method for balancing the two?
My method for balancing the trademark Caitlin method of balancing learning versus doing. All
right, let me get my pen.
Well,
no, she's just thinking on her feet here.
I am. I'm actually just buying time for me to go, oh my God, how do I do this? So I mentioned Marie Forleo earlier because I'm involved in her B-School program, and she had introduced me to a concept called your C to C ratio, and that's when it kind of like hit me. And your C to C ratio is your, if I remember the exact words, it's your creation to consumption ratio. And once I started thinking of it as a ratio like that, and then, like I said, our episode with Mark Platt can kind of back that up. He called it input versus output. Same thing, different words. So I can just make that conscious decision, like I mentioned before, about what kind of phase do I want to be in right now. I also think it's really important to call yourself out on your BS when you're, using it as an excuse of like, oh, I'm learning. But you can learn forever, not get anything done. Stop crutching on it. Sometimes you need to learn. Sometimes it's really valid. But I also think that it's really easy for people to brush what's actually going on under the rug and call it learning.
And it's important to recognize when it's actually needed and not. So, like,
yes,
we had already talked about just like constantly surrounding yourself with references for just the purpose of you never know when it's going to be useful, but when it comes down to actually like researching for a specific purpose, you need to know when that needs to end. So like when I was doing Paleo Art stuff, like anytime I'm attempting to do anything Paleo Art stuff, it needs to be like equal balance, like constant. Like you need to have a broad enough understanding before you start doing anything so that you don't have to redo a bunch of work later.
Right.
But at the same time, more references are going to come out, and so you have to constantly be consuming and like tweaking and adjusting things, even if it's difficult after the fact, if you're committed to that purpose of scientific expression. But the stuff that I'm doing now, it's like I'm making things for cartoon movies, so it's like I need a certain level, like Right now, I was working on something that's a little more realistic, still cartoony, but a little more realistic style-wise. So I actually had the chance to like go in and do all this kind of research that actually helped with some kind of mechanics of what I was working on. But I still recognize it's a cartoon. You know, the art directors have an idea of what they want it to look like. So regardless of if it's right or not, you know, it needs to fit in the style of the movie and all that kind of stuff. And like the last movie I worked on was just super cartoony. So I would still read up on stuff, but like not nearly as much because I knew that it wasn't needed because, you know, there's no way that the anatomy transfers on these animals and stuff like that.
I mean, I think that's another thing where I think there is another side to that. I'm trying to remember whose art book it was, but you know, even if you're doing something really stylized, it still really helps to know the fundamentals.
Yes,
like if you're going to do a really cartoony figure, a really cartoony face, you can still tell, you know, if that person knows the fundamentals because it shows through.
And I think that's really important for character designers in particular. So I have to do stuff that's already been designed by, you know, artists and modelers and stuff. So I have to make that function basically. But like, if you're actually a designer and generating what these things look like, you know, from the beginning, I think knowing how those things, the realistic versions work, it helps you so much because you can get so much more interesting designs that can be true to your reference material without, you know, being exact. Like little details, you can exaggerate certain like forms that are specific to whatever that creature or whatever it is that you're designing. And I think I wish more people would do that sometimes.
Yeah, I can understand that.
That's a rant for another day.
Another thing that I just wanted to point out, which I wanted to mention earlier, it's not really related to this, but as a means of learning and doing, which most people don't think. As a teacher, when I first started teaching, I thought that it would take me away from actually, you know, putting in more work and actually growing myself, but by teaching other people and going through, you know, techniques and processes to give to them, you know, I often find that that's a really great way for me to expand my own skill set, for me to learn.
Absolutely. Like,
because then I'm forced to, you know, to relearn. I'm forced to take the reps in order to, you know, convey that in a way that they can digest, in a way that works for them. So I'm constantly improving myself and growing myself, which I think is a really cool thing. That's why I always advocate teaching, or, you know, helping other people out.
It's a great experience to teach things that you aren't yourself super well versed in, because you have to learn it really quickly and become an expert so that you don't screw up these minds that you're teaching to.
And I think a lot of people are terrified of that. I know that I've always been. It's like, what right do I have to teach this? So I need to be the best at this. But at the same time, another one of my friends, it's kind of tangentially related. Another one of my friends, when I was working at a video game publisher, was telling me, you know, if you have an opportunity for a promotion, if somebody offers you a job, you know, an opportunity to advance, even if you don't know how to do it, take it, because you will learn how to do it. So I think that translates also for teaching, that obviously you want to have some type of reputability, but at the same time, even if you're not an expert at it, take the opportunity, because then you'll learn on the job. You will expand your own skill set. So I think that that's a really cool way to both learn and do.
And this is obviously not a way to knock teachers or anything. Obviously, you have to have a certain amount of, you know, credentials before you're even asked to be taught. Or just saying that, like, things you aren't necessarily quite as familiar with, but you still have skills in that. Not saying like, oh yeah, you should just like go teach something and never feel different field.
I'm not going to go teach,
because anyone can do it. It's like, no, absolutely not that. We're just saying, you know, just to clarify.
There should be some type of base understanding. I'm not going to go teach astrophysics or paleo art. But yeah.
So to recap,
Yes. Nice, Kate.
keep learning, learn forever. Learning is super cool, and get your stuff done. Still get your
Right.
stuff done. So any last words before I wrap up the episode?
No.
Okay, all right. I decided you're done now. So, like us on Facebook at facebook.com, Michael.
Sorry.
Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/artistic awareness. We are on Twitter at Art Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube to get these episodes delivered straight to your inbox. It's a really great idea.
Also, don't forget the Facebook group, which
Oh
is.
yes, we've just reopened the Facebook community group. Where can they find that?
So
Do we have a
don't
link
worry,
to that?
I got you covered.
Thank you.
It is facebook.com/groups/artistic awareness, and that
Oh, thank God, I totally wasn't prepared for that.
I gotcha. That's artistic awareness. That is, we have our artistic awareness official, Facebook page, and this is sort of the community hub. So it's called Artistic Awareness Community, and this, gives us the opportunity to
connect with other people, to keep the conversation going, to talk about what you need, help somebody else, chat about the episodes, stuff like that.
And the great thing about the official page is that it's easy for all of our content to be seen. Whether it's episodes or announcements or things like that, they're always visible. The downside is that it's hard sometimes to see some of the community post interaction. So what's really great about Artistic Awareness Community as the group is that everybody has an equal say. If it's something that we're saying, you'll be able to see it. If it's something that you're saying, we'll be able to see it just as clearly. So I think that that's a really great format, and I'm glad that we brought that back.
So Evan, where can people keep up and keep in touch with you, since you're like a super famous paleo artist and stuff like that?
Yes.
Jack of all trades, master of all trades.
Yes, that. So my website is just my name, evanboucher.com. Also, I have an art blog, which I don't post as much as I should, and
Learning versus doing, Evan.
Yes, exactly. But it's at amateurzoologist.blogspot.com. And yeah, between those two, you'll be able to find all my other stuff, everything from Vimeo to LinkedIn, IMDb, all that kind of stuff. So.
All that good stuff. Awesome. Well, thank you, Evan, for being on with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And to everyone watching, we want to hear from you. How do you guys balance learning with doing? Leave your comments right below this video wherever you're watching it. So on behalf of Artistic Awareness, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
See you later. Say goodbye, Evan.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.